This week on the Sports Initiative podcast, I sit down with Cat 1 Academy coach Jake Britton. He discusses his transition from academy player to academy coach, as well as how home practice has changed over the last 20 years. I hope you enjoy. Right, with me today I've got Jake Britton. Jake, if you just want to tell everyone kind of who you are and what you do at the moment, and go from there.
I'm Jake Britton. I'm currently working as a football coach with Southampton Football Club in the academy, and then, like a lot of people in the coaching business, picking up stuff where I can elsewhere, working in college programs, doing local teams, and just trying to make some money coaching.
No easy task.
Tell me about it.
I guess the best place to start is kind of why football? Why as a kid did you lean towards football? What gave you an interest in it?
I think straight away it was almost thrust upon me with my family. I think it was football or go and sit down and sit in a corner and get lost. Brothers were into it, dad was into it. So it's probably what I've grown up with. I have 3 older brothers. They were all playing and enjoying it. So you want to be like your older brothers, don't you? So went into it that way. And yeah, started playing for my older brother's team. And it's just blown up since then.
So obviously you said that kind of thrust upon you. Was there a particular team thrust upon you during that, or was that?
Yeah, definitely. My old man is a big Chelsea fan, so that team was thrust upon me, which hasn't been a bad thing. Growing up in the Chelsea era of Roman Abramovich has been quite a nice team to support. Not so much now, but yeah, it was Chelsea or nothing else really. I had an old brother who bounced around from a few teams, but was always Bristol City fan. So my family are Bristol City because of the local area, and then Chelsea pretty much.
What about in terms of locally with like teams you played for and stuff? What age did you start playing?
Teams I played for, I started when I was about 4. I played for my older brother's team, and I was stood on the sideline going, I want to be out there playing, and tried everything I could to join in the sessions. Coach eventually let me, and I did okay, and they needed players, so I was playing for Longwell Green, big club in Bristol, and yeah, just followed on since then. And then I think the FA brought in some rules, you couldn't play 2 years up and stuff, so I ended up just finding an age group of a local team where I could go and play in my own age, and then it just carried on from there. I didn't go into an academy straight away. Probably back then there wasn't too much going on at those younger age groups, but went through and ended up probably about 12 going into academy stuff. But all through that period I was playing 2 or 3 times a week for whichever team would have me.
Okay. So how old's your brother compared to you?
2 years above me.
Okay, so you're playing 2 years above.
Yeah.
How did you find that in terms of like starting out and stuff with playing 2 years above? Did there have any effects?
I think technically it probably limited me somewhat. I didn't start straight away having loads of the football. It was, okay, you're smaller than everyone, you got to go and fight, and that's how you're going to be able to play the game, is got to have a ruck with someone really. I've got another 2 older half brothers than that, so they were in their 20s when I was 6 and 7, so having that environment was, my playing environment straight away was going and trying to compete with lads who are physically stronger than you, and then my practice environment was playing with my older brothers in the garden, where you're playing against a 35-year-old and you're 5, all you do is try and kick lumps out of their shins, don't you? And that probably dictated the way I played when I was older. Was always aggressive and tough in my defending. Probably lacked a little bit in terms of technique and the nicer side of the game, we like to call it.
Okay, so obviously playing with your older ones, you're quite competitive and stuff with them.
Yeah.
Did that carry on through your, like, as you obviously got a little bit older and moved away from those younger age groups, did that carry on? Were you still really competitive with your older brother?
Older brothers is always the same. You're always competing for everything, really. My sibling, who is my full brother, who's 2 years older than me, we were pretty close. He loved football, but wasn't pursuing football in terms of career or anything. So there wasn't direct competition in that, but he's still 2 years older than you, and kids football, that makes a difference. So everything you're doing in the garden, you want to beat each other, and there's that sibling rivalry in pretty much everything you do.
So people like Michael Jordan, for example. I think he's one of 3, something like that, and he kind of says a similar story in terms of the fact he got battered as a kid, and that made him have that kind of drive to.
Yeah, I think I've seen some research in that. You look at to sibling order, you get the older sibling is probably the one who gets a bit more time put into the academic side of things, because there's 2 parents, one child at that point, so you get a little bit more support in terms of your schoolwork and speaking and just general little bits, whereas when you're the younger child, as soon as you can walk, you kind of get left to your own devices a little bit. You get left to entertain each other. So the academic side, so the academic side, you lose a little bit, but physically and probably lends itself more to sport, that you get that challenge pretty much constantly.
So the era you say you're a Chelsea fan, or dad's a Chelsea fan, inflicted it on you. Players growing up that you remember, who were the.
I think for me, it's always Frank Lampard and John Terry were in their prime when I was more aware of football. Obviously, when you're 4, you wear the shirts and you know about it, and you know one team's winning, that's good, one team's losing, that's bad. But I think it's only until you get a little bit older where you start to realise, okay, he's good because he does this. He's not so good because he does this. And I think I'd always played as a centre midfielder, so I'd put my Lampard number 8 on, or I played as a centre back where I put my John Terry shirt on. And you run around thinking, I'm looking like Frank Lampard. Look at me making these runs, running up and down the pitch, probably not getting anywhere near the ball, but you think you're Frank Lampard. Those 2 were probably the main ones, probably more so because it was position specific, but they were the 2 I really remember. And there was some others like Claude Makelele. I remember that was huge, him coming to Chelsea and going, look at this footballer, he is the only person in this group of footballers who plays this role and does this, whereas now you see hundreds of forwards and Claude Makelele's. So I think there was a few like that.
So in terms of your skill acquisition, as you said earlier on, you didn't probably spend too much time looking at specifically technical stuff. Is there anything that during maybe a game of Wembley or during a small-sided game, if you were playing with friends, that you would go, well, Frank Lampard does this, so I'm going to keep trying to do that?
Yeah, I think I had in the house I grew up in, spent my early years in, we had a real long garden. It was probably the width of a 11-a-side goal, and we managed to convince my mum and dad to get us an 11-a-side goal. So we had the goal, and it was 1v1, pretty much me and my brother most of the time. And you end up just being tough, aggressive, and brave, because it's 1v1. You're in front of this massive goal. If you don't stop him scoring, he's going to be winning 12-0. So you're chucking your face at things. You're trying to clothesline in to stop him scoring when he runs past you. So you get that 1v1 element in terms of defending. I think as an attacking point of view, in that environment, which was constant throughout the summer, we'd be out there every evening till 9-10 o'clock. I couldn't ever run him. He's 2 years older than me. I wasn't particularly quick anyway. Couldn't ever run past him. So the element of skills, moves, turns, that sort of thing, you don't really get. It's trying to shift half a yard and smash it in the back of the net, because you got this closed pitch. If you try and bend something, put it too wide, it goes in the hedge, goes over the fence. You just got to try and smash it in the goal. So I think I probably developed 1v1 defending pretty well, and then just being able to just strike a ball hard and fast.
And would you say that translates, obviously we'll get onto this later, not playing as much as you used to now, but would you say that translates to how you've played as you've grown up? Would you say that that's kind of the kind of player you were, a good 1v1 defender and then able to distribute either over distances or so?
Yeah, definitely. I think my game was often, I wasn't the most flash, and probably someone who wouldn't stand out loads at a lower level, but could compete at a higher level, just because I think general just desire and having that attitude that I don't want to get beat. And I think that is something that probably took me to where I went in terms of academy football. But I think as I got older, I think 12-ish, I started to realise that there's probably more to it. There's probably, I need to add something else to my game rather than just thinking I got to go and win that ball and give it to someone else. It was started to think a little bit more tactically and technically about what I was doing. I remember my brother still laughs about it now. I was horrific with my left foot. Couldn't kick it. Literally straight leg. I had to move it with my arm and have a swing at it. But after about 3 or 4 months, I go, oh, that's embarrassing actually. They're all taking the at me. So I just went away and just started kicking the ball with my left foot. And unless you've got that purpose to why you're practicing, you just get by without it. But then I probably realised that actually I might need my standing foot for something else. And then I wouldn't say good, but it was usable, which added probably something else to my game.
So what's interesting is obviously I think there's been a big disparity between when I was a kid and when you were a kid. You go out and play 1v1 defending, 1v1 attacking, winning games, all that type of stuff. Whereas now, I think a lot of, particularly around practice, is your ball mastering, ball manipulations and stuff. What are your thoughts in terms of why those differences are there, if they're positive, or what are the positive, what are the negatives?
I think now if you look at the two players who are believed to be the best players in the world, they're Ronaldo and Messi, and what you associate with Ronaldo and Messi is dribbling, is being on the ball, step overs, using all these different skills that look really good. And I think more and more now we're in a position where lads want to be like that, so they're braver. Whereas I think when we probably grew up, it was more associated with winning, and less so of looking good. I think the Barcelona era probably changed things, where they really ramped up that style of play, and I think that probably reflects in what individuals I see at all levels are braver to try things, in terms of, even if it's just trying things on their own in their back garden, they'll probably be trying flicks and tricks rather than try and touch out your feet, smash it in the top corner. I think that's just the way things have shifted a little bit. I think the way we grew up probably lent itself to more the English game, whereas now it's probably shifting away from that. I think the English game's changing, for one, but
as positively or no?
I think so, yeah. I think if you're more touches of the ball, getting more possession, I think that's only going to lend itself to producing better players and probably more entertaining football. So yeah, I'd probably say it's positive. I think there's still a little bit missing in terms of having boys being able to defend. And I think that's what you see a lot of coming from grassroots football into academy football. That next step is being able to compete, whether that's physically or just being able to defend in 1v1 situations, or understand that you have to get the ball back and have that desire to get the ball back.
I think desire is obviously quite a good word, something you speak about. What's interesting is a lot of the stuff you mentioned there is like, I went out and wanted to hit it top ends, or I went out, was embarrassed by my left foot and I went out and did it. Do you think that we have to dictate more now than we used to regarding that type of stuff?
Yeah, I think in general, parenting's changed. Parenting is in control of everything now.
Something that I find kind of concerning, I think, like regarding this is, I think part of the reason we do it, and I think it is a cultural thing, I don't think it's just a parenting thing, I think they're a proportion of it, but I think schools are the same. I think,
Yeah.
you know, we're all guilty of it, is trying to protect the kids from like negative experiences. So trying to say that we don't want this to happen because that will upset them.
Yeah, short term.
Whereas actually, I think if you look at some of the most driven and well-rounded and grounded people that I know, both like locally around here, but also in terms of nationally, and that I look across, they've probably had some real horrible negative experiences that they've had to deal with.
Yeah, you look at it, if you took some of the most successful people in the world in whatever industry, whatever they're doing, they would have had setbacks, they would have found things tough, but they found a way around that. I think if you're constantly protecting kids from failure, from hurt, from negativity, of whether that's from someone else trying to stop you doing what you're doing, anything like that, I think you probably stop them having the ability to grow and to deal with adversity. They need it. And I think we all do. I think there's probably times where we find things tough and we've got to just try and get through it. But it's having the understanding and experience probably before that this feels like the end of the world at the moment, but actually it's probably not. You'll get through it. It's your building blocks for life, not just sport or football or anything. It's, have you got the ability to do something yourself and find things hard and keep going with it? I think it's probably too easy to quit nowadays, whatever you're doing.
I heard a quote recently, I can't remember who it was by, but the quote that came back was the role of a mum or a parent, dad as well, but it was a mum in this particular context, is to slowly and intermittently disappoint your child. Basically, I think working on the pretense that if you consistently do that, you consistently disappoint them and they have to fend more and more for themselves, then they get the grounding they'll need when they're an adult. So it starts off with, you have to hold their hand when they're crossing the road. And as a 3 or 4 year old or whatever, you have to hold their hand.
Yeah.
And then one day you go, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. And it'll probably upset the kid initially. Yeah. It's going to upset them, going, like, Mum's, why is she not on my hand? This is mental. And probably it might upset them a little bit. But then slowly they learn how to cross the road without you holding their hand. So you know that if they end up walking to school or something when they're 7 or 8, they know how to do it. I think like it's called obviously Rocky Road approach in terms of the sporting context. But I think that there's something to be said in that, and kind of your parents giving you more and more ownership, letting you fail at stuff, and kind of trying to teach you the morals behind the stories.
It's a good debate. Don't know what the answer is, but don't give a child enough, they end up failing and not feeling like they're supported. Don't give them, or give them too much, they take it for granted and end up failing anyway. So I think there's a happy medium somewhere.
Yeah. Interesting to see what that is. I know, like out in the States, one thing they do in the NFL, like the Dallas Cowboys, famous with the star, they make their first year pros, or rookies as they call them, earn the star. So they're not allowed to have basically the badge of the team until they've done or shown certain aspects of Dallas Cowboys behaviour. So I've always think that's quite an interesting one. How could you do that with the kids? Is it on their kit that maybe they don't have the Southampton badge in this context, or if other teams, Chelsea badge, Tottenham badge, Yeovil badge, whoever it is, and they have to earn it.
Yeah. And
then you still, although you're giving them kit, you're still grounding them in some context to, you've got to earn this. I think that's one reason why, like you said about computer games, they're so addictive, is that in order to get past one level, or to get to the end of the game, you've got to get the big boss. You've got to get through all these levels, and it's a real clever way of enticing people in at the start. You think, this is easy, I'm going to be able to do it. And then when you start failing, you keep going back and back and back. I guess it's a way, can you do that in real life in terms of making kids want to keep coming back and show that resilience that they do in a virtual world, but in reality, basically.
It's a funny one. I found it even when I was a child playing, and even now to some degree, if I'm on a night out with my missus, if I'm on a night out with my mates, and I see someone who I used to know, probably as a teenager, bump into them, the first thing they ask is, "That's a football guy. Who are you playing for?" And it just consumes your whole world, where you become less of a person who has all these attributes, and you become he is a footballer. And then it's, as you take that identity away, what that does and how you can deal with that. And that's one of the biggest challenges we've got. It's brilliant that your son at 8, your son at 9, 10, whether it's 16, whether it's 18, brilliant that they're in a football club and they're a footballer. But what else are they? Because you can't just be a footballer for the rest of your life. It's a 10, 15 year window that you'll be a professional footballer. And if you think about it, footballers week, they'll train for a couple of hours and then go back in the afternoon, have a kip, and then maybe do a bit of gym work. But that's 4 hours of a 24-hour day that you've got. There's got to be some other components to your life, which is why having that whole picture of a person is I think is probably one of the most important things that we can do as coaches developing young players.
So what's interesting is I actually did my dissertation on that. I was at uni on the transition away from sport, and I spoke to a couple of people during that dissertation. And one of them actually got injured as he got a little bit older, and he said that he hated Saturdays every week.
Yeah.
So quiz him on it, and he was like, "Why?" And he said, for that reason, that he's known as a footballer, and because he's injured, he can't play football. So therefore, what's he meant to do on a Saturday? A footballer that can't play football on a Saturday? Yeah,
I had a similar thing. So I tore my cruciate at 15 whilst I was at Swindon Town, and I was doing pretty well and enjoying it and progressing, and tore my cruciate. So luckily they supported me really well, got me an operation through the NHS, but it was done quickly, where some people have to wait 5-6 months, whereas I got mine within a month or two. But then spent the next half a year to a year in rehab, and wasn't pretty much allowed to do any football, wasn't really allowed to kick a ball. So I went from being this academy player in the environment of training 4 times a week, playing football for the school, doing everything I could, to suddenly, right, you're not doing that 4 times a week. You've got these hours back to yourself. You can't go on the Astro at lunchtime and play football with your group of mates. You've got to find something else to do. And I think that's where it kind of shifted. I almost lost a group of mates because I couldn't spend the social hours at school with them because they were all playing football. I couldn't bring myself to stand on the sideline and watch 20 of my mates play headers and volleys and have a well of a time while I stand and watch. So you almost have to shift and go, okay, what else am I? What else can I do? And I think that was probably something that at the time was tough, and it damaged probably a lot of family relationships when I was a teenager, going through puberty and all that side of things, and then losing your identity and coming out and going, I got to find myself again. At that point, came out of academy football. Once I got back fit, it was a few months, right, go and get fit, show us how good you are. And as much as an injury is an excuse, I just wasn't good enough at that point, for a variety of reasons. Probably mentally, my head probably wasn't right, and found it tough that coming back from an injury like that, well, not naturally physically the most fit. So go and compete against these lads who have been playing in your spot for the last year. It's quite a big gap to catch up, but came out of that and just wanted to play, really. So kind of get almost a little bit of that identity back, where just go and play football. That's what everyone thinks you are. That's what you've wanted to be for the last 6 years of trying to work to be a footballer. Get a little bit back, and went and played college football and played men's college football at 16 and got a lesson in what the other side of football is about, and trying to not have to deal with the nicey of academy football and deal with a big centre forward trying to knock your head off as you go up for a header. And it probably motivated me a little bit more to work towards the nicer side of the game, the academy football, nice pitches, you actually play and you're enjoying the football rather than having to have a ruck with someone who's 2 foot taller than you and angrier than you.
So at 12 you're at Longwell.
So I bounced around a few clubs. So 12, at that point I was at Avon Athletic.
Okay.
We had a really good team. We were playing local Avon Youth League football in Bristol. We were the best team. We won everything. At that point, we had 8 players from that group go off to academies. 1 to Man United. The rest were around. They were going Swindon, Portsmouth, Yeovil, Bristol Rovers, Bristol City.
From what you're saying now, I'm assuming the Premier League didn't have that hour and a half.
At that point it was, where do you fancy playing? I think it was loosely involved. I think it was, at that point, I think it was an hour and 45. I seem to remember someone saying, we've got an extra hour on him, because I was 45 minutes away from Swindon.
Yeah.
So
what age did you go to Swindon?
So about 12.
About 12, and you were there till 16?
Yeah, so I spent a year. I don't know why I had this weird thing that I committed to Avon, which was just a local grassroots team, but it was about a month into the season, and I think I was devastated to let my manager down, let my group of mates down if I left at that point. So it was kind of agreed that Swindon Town came in for me first and wanted me and offered to sign me, but I said I'd see the season out and then join them at the end. While the season was going on, Bristol City came in and a few other clubs, Portsmouth and stuff, were looking. Then towards the end of the season, kind of went, well, actually, I might have to make a decision now. And probably the local football wasn't what I needed at that point, and I was probably needed that extra little bit of challenge. And then for some weird reason I chose Swindon over hometown club of Bristol City and a team that my family support.
So I guess obviously you had a decision to make in terms of what club to go to. You mentioned Dad's obviously very keen football fan, older brothers and stuff are very keen football fans. Was there any pressure on their part in terms of starting academy football or where to go in academy football? Because obviously that is something that can happen.
I think my family are brilliant in terms of support in everything I've done, really. I think there wasn't loads of pressure to go in. I think there was a pressure to make the best of the opportunity. And I think that was probably something I didn't quite understand at that point. Going in, what I didn't understand, why can't I play for so and so on a Friday night and then play on a Saturday? That's what I've done ever since I was 4 years old. I've played back to back. I've done all that sort of stuff, and I probably didn't quite understand that side of things at that point. Then once I went in, that was probably where the clash was. I think mainly probably my dad. It was difficult to. We spent a lot of time in the car together as a teenager, spending loads of time with your dad. There was always going to be clashes. I think when I was in there, I probably there was more of an expectation from my dad for me to be the best I could be and perform the best I could be, and it was good while I was playing. I think there was great support. It wasn't too much pressure. It was, yeah, son, probably weren't very good today. Well, why weren't you very good? I don't know, Dad. All right then. Or it was, oh, you did really well today. Yeah. And that was as far as it went, really. There wasn't, we probably chat a little bit about, oh, so and so did this, I should have done this when this happened. And that was as far as the detail went. But I think once I got injured, my mindset kind of changed a little bit. And then once I was trying to get back, I think that was a really tough period where I was a teenager and kind of like, oh, I don't care, I don't want to listen to anyone. Trying to get back fit and having that frustration of, oh, I'm not as good as I once was, and I'm trying to catch up and not as confident as I once was. Mistakes hit me a lot harder. But that was just, I think that was the nature of being injured. And I think most footballers will go through that at some point. I think it's probably unfortunate for me at times, where it's unfortunate the timing being so early and being at a season where it was really important, 16 season. And then probably fortunate for me that I learnt a lesson pretty early that being a footballer is not just given to you. You need something else behind you, and it takes a lot.
So in terms of conversations with your dad and stuff, did you used to get irritated by that? Or was it a kind of situation where you're like, oh no, I'm happy to have the open and honest feedback?
I think in general, I think sometimes it's hard to receive criticism anyway. I think even as an adult, it's quite hard for someone to tell you you're not doing a good job. I think everyone craves that acknowledgement and craves that well done. I think what I learned pretty early on is that sometimes that's what you need. And I know if I had a bad game, I think most people do. I think some of the 8-year-olds we've got here could tell you when they've had a good game, when they've had a bad game. I think when it comes down to it's repetitive and you're going constantly, yeah, you've had a bad game, should have done this, you should have done that. I think that's when it gets too much. But I think there was probably quite a healthy balance to begin with when I was playing of, yeah, you weren't very good today, let's move past it. So yeah. Did you resent him for that, in terms of when he was being critical? Like you said, people are fully aware if you've had a good or bad game. Did you used to resent him when you kind of got in the car and he'd say to you? Yeah, I think there was probably more going on. When I clashed with him, it was more when once I was coming back from my injury, where I was frustrated by everything. I was a grumpy teenager. I was frustrated by my injury and having that injury, where as I went from doing really well to finding it really hard, which was a hard concept because of this injury. I think I resented that whole process of being injured and trying to get back. I probably when I went back into the under-16 season, I was with different coaches and didn't really enjoy those coaches, or didn't believe that they would get the best out of me and didn't really believe in me. So I think that whole situation was just hard and probably made the relationship driving home 45 minutes from Swindon to Bristol even harder. So any comment that my dad would make, I would probably find it hard to deal with.
So then, obviously, once you've removed from the academy, removed from football and stuff, did that tension and stuff decrease a lot?
Yeah, it definitely did. I think I went to a college program, so I wouldn't have my dad taking me to training. I'd get on a bus and I'd ride my bike. I'd be in the morning at 9 o'clock. My dad's at work at 9 o'clock, so there wasn't that constant association with my dad and football, or my family and football in general. So it was a little bit like, oh, how'd you get on today? Yeah, we did all right. And that was it, because he wasn't there. He didn't know about it. Didn't know what was going on. I was playing Saturday men's football, which there was a lot of other stuff going on. I probably at that time didn't really want my dad there. But he had other commitments on a Saturday anyway. So it probably fell in quite nicely that I got, that's 8 months, 9 months before I went back into academy stuff, of just being able to go and play without anything else. And probably I was at a level that was maybe a little bit below what I was capable of. So I was doing well and I was enjoying it. And I think that was probably the perfect thing that could have happened to me once I had that injury and come out of the academy football.
So I suspect that's probably not an unusual relationship in terms of kids and their parents with football, in terms of that. Obviously, you went through it from the age of 12 to 16-ish, if you look at that.
Yeah.
How do you think that would have sculpted your relationship if that had been from, say, 9, if you want to go academy, or if you want to go younger than that, pre-academy, possibly 7 or 8?
Yeah, I think it shifts. I think as a teenager, you shift more to what does everyone else think, not just what your parents think. And because you're younger, that constant need to please your parents is there. Whereas as a teenager, kind of, I don't care what they think. So I think maybe a younger age, maybe their behaviour would have changed a little bit because I was younger, and they wouldn't probably demand so much of me. But I think it would have been okay, because at a younger age I probably would have taken more of their advice and would have believed their opinion to be right without questioning it too much.
The interesting dynamic, I think, sometimes is how do you just kind of let them know that weren't great today, I still love you, is what it is.
Yeah, I think it's what the difference is between the child and the parent is the understanding of the end goal. The majority of the time, kids are aware of what they're trying to do and if they're in an academy environment or whatever they're doing in whatever sport or school or whatever, they're aware of the end goal, but they don't understand it. Parents are aware of the end goal or understand the end goal better than the kids do. I think the kids are aware of it, but they don't understand it as well as the parents do. And I think having that clarity of this is the end goal, you've got to do this, this, and this to get to that end goal. Parents are so aware of, if you're not meeting those standards or those little goals within that, it might not happen. But you need to be getting through the process and enjoying the process. Otherwise, it's pointless having that end goal if you end up not enjoying it.
I think the enjoying bit to the climb, I think that's relatable for entire life, really. Like, everyone goes, oh, this is my end goal, this is a job I dream of. And then when you get to that, you're kind of like, oh, what now? Because if that's all you've worked for and then you're there, you can kind of, I imagine, feel like a bit of a hollow thing. Whereas you need to enjoy, like, it sounds stupid, enjoy doing kit. Away days to places that take you 5 hours to get to play a game, to then get 5 hours back. And then when you get to that end bit, you go, actually, I've got loads of really good memories and enjoyable bits, and I've worked hard to get where I am, so I'm going to enjoy this bit even more. And I think, like you said, with the parents, that's a really important one, that trying to make the kids understand it's a real long journey, particularly if you're in pre-academy all the way through. Not all of them are going to make it. Like, the stats show that, any program, TV show that. It'd be lovely if they all did and had a living in the game. Like, I would have loved it, and you would have loved it, and every kid would have loved it that we work with. But that isn't going to happen. So trying to make that experience really enjoyable is really important. Trying to get so they learn stuff along the way, not just in a football context, but also in a personal context, is really important.
I was reading something recently. It was a philosopher who was talking about, in general in life, and I quite liked it. It was, there's going to be extreme highs and extreme lows. What you want to do is find yourself and find happiness somewhere in between. Because if you strive to always be in this extreme high, you're never going to reach it, because once you get to that extreme high, there's still something else that might be even better. And if you're trying so hard to avoid the extreme low, you'll never be able to deal with it, so the extreme high won't be as good. So having that medium in between where you enjoy the process of the hard stuff, and then you accept and take care of the extreme highs and take them for what they are. Probably something out of the norm. And then you've got that bit of happiness through the content period where things might not be so bad and might not be so great. I found it. We played in the Milk Cup. It's a big tournament in Ireland. Loads of teams there. You walk out and you're 14, 15 years old, and you're walking around the streets of Ireland, and you've got crowds of thousands of people trying to get you to sign this book, which has got all the team photos in, so they can go and sell it in 10 years' time for loads of money because you're playing Premier League, Champions League football. You go through this massive parade, you think, Jesus, I'm a footballer here. Go out and play, and you do well. And we ended up getting to the semi-finals, and we played in a quarter-finals against Spartak, and it's a massive event. There's thousands of people watching, and I scored. And at that point, I'm on top of the world. I'm thinking, Jesus, I'm going to be in a final here. Chelsea are going to be wanting to sign me. I'm going to be playing for England in a year. And then suddenly you get into the semi-final, and we get put out on a not great pitch. There's not so many fans watching because Chelsea are playing Everton in another semi-final at the same time at a different venue. And we lose to a Mexican team, Cruz Azul, who were very good footballers, but they very much knew how to win a game of football. They were dirty, they were horrible, they dived, they did everything they could to win the game. And as a group, we got frustrated by it, and our heads were gone. So we lost the game, and you've gone from having, I'm going to play for England, to I can't even play against a Mexican team.
Dog and Duck United, new signing, yeah.
Dog and Duck from Mexico, and it is, well, I think they, I don't know the detail, but Cruz Azul are a pretty big team over there. We didn't really know who they were. We were 14, pretty naive, man. Some team from Mexico, we'll have these lot. Come on, we're a good side. And then you have that extreme low, and I think that few days of football that I experienced sums up football in general, and was probably a really good lesson.
I think the best teams and best players can, like, you try and say it to younger ones, they can control their emotions. I had the story of Roger Federer. If you look at him now, it seems like stone cold killer. Just you wouldn't know what's affecting him. You can't tell if he's angry, if he's happy. Like won a tournament, whatever. But for the most part, really stone faced. As a kid, he used to smash rackets up.
Yeah.
Parents used to be to an extent where they wouldn't let him go to tournaments and stuff. They said it's embarrassing on the family, the fact he keeps smashing rackets up.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe the fact that a guy that has got that good of self-control, that like now I couldn't see how he's getting on. Like, if I just watched his face, I wouldn't be able to tell you if he's winning or losing.
Yeah.
As a kid, was really temperamental in his actions. But I think it shows you, like, particularly those younger ages, if you can get to a stage where you try and stomp that highs and lows out and try and keep it even keeled, I try and say it to lads.
Yeah.
When you win, that's great, but there's still stuff you need to work on. When you lose, okay, that's not great, but there's still stuff you need to work on.
Yeah.
If you can stay in that middle zone, that's when you're going to get performances, because you realise that it's a process that they have to try and go through to get to that end goal. And that a lot of the time it's really important that they just don't get too high when they do something really good, don't get too low, and that understand they're going to make mistakes, they're going to do things well. It kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
Bit I want to kind of go loop back around to. So, did you cruise ship? Do you remember specific game, specific moment where you've kind of gone, this ain't right, like something's gone here, like what?
Yeah, so we were playing, so there was a 2-week period of pre-season. We played 3 games in the first week against good opposition, the academy sides, and then at the start of the second week we were playing some county team. I'd never heard of them, didn't know who they were, and it was Monday night, turn up in your training kit and we'll play a game against them. We'll rattle a few past them and we'll cruise this. And then Monday, and then we played a game on the Wednesday against, I think it was Tottenham. And on that Monday night, I was playing, and I played right wing, which was, yeah, you can see by your face, yeah, is alien to me.
Everything now, yeah. Like a young Kevin Kilbane.
And I was enjoying myself. I was running up and down. I think I'd scored one and set up one. And then we played the third period, and it just went to pot. Everyone went, we've smashed this lot. Let's have a jolly up. Let's cruise around. And they got a couple back, and we went in at the end of that period because it was really hot. And we went, manager came in, gave us a rocket going, what are you doing? Sort yourselves out. Your standards are dropping. This shouldn't be happening. Went back into normal shape. I was playing right back at the time. So went right back, and they came out with loads of energy. Again, we've got them here. And they had a couple of chances in the first 2 or 3 minutes. And then a lad who was playing centre-back next to me has tried to clear a ball from about the edge of the box. We were set up as a bank of 4, and he shanked it high up in the air. We got to go and sort this out. They're coming back on us. They've rattled a few past us, or they're getting up close to our goal. So I've got to try and do something. So I chased after this ball that's dropping out the air, and then it's bounced, rock hard ground because it's middle of August. It's bounced back up. Must have been about 12, 15 foot up in the air. And as it's coming down, I've jumped to try and head it and clear it. Lads come behind me and just give me a little nudge just to take me off balance, and so my header didn't go right back into where the striker was. And at that point, I've gone over and I just couldn't control the weight. And where I jumped with my legs spread apart, I've come down with a straight leg. So it was pretty much bone on bone, hyperextension. So a bit like the Kurt Zuma one. Can you remember that one?
Yeah.
So
yeah, backwards.
So it's gone backwards on itself, and the pressure of the two bones smashing together has just popped my cruciate. There was a couple of lads who I was playing with heard the pop. I went down and was on the floor in quite a bit of pain. It wasn't too bad. I'd always thought that doing your cruciate would be excruciating pain. It wasn't too bad, but I remember someone telling me to roll off the pitch, thinking, you're injured, get off the pitch. And the physio staff were all stood on the other side of the pitch, coaching staff going, yeah, just roll off the pitch, you'll be all right. We'll get someone else on, and then we'll come and get you round. They thought I had cramp or something like that. And then I ended up rolling on and off the pitch because people were telling me different things. The ref wouldn't stop it. So it must have been a minute or so's gone by. Physio's come over and straight away gone, swollen up a little bit. Did the knee test where they get your knee at 90 degrees and pull it a little bit, and straight away went, something's not right here. And walked up to the physio room where the head physio was.
You walked up?
Walked up, yeah.
Was it just hobbled along?
I just hobbled along, yeah. My dad walked round and go, what have you done? Why'd you go for that ball? I was like, well, I don't really know, to be honest. But I was trying to make up for it. So I walked up to the physio room, and straight away she went, did the test again and said, you need to go for a scan. So after about a week or so, we tried to get it on the NHS, and it was wait 2 months to get a scan. And in the end, we spoke to the head physio who was doing the first team at the time, who was actually there when Paolo Di Canio was there. So that was that little era. So she got me in to get a scan, paid for it. So I think it's about 180 quid for an MRI. Give it to the doctors at the club, and straight away they went, it's not great. We think it's your cruciate. I didn't know what a cruciate ligament was at the time. I said, what's that? What does that mean then? I said,
a couple of weeks, fine. A couple of weeks.
I was thinking, it's just like a little knock on your knee. It'd be like a couple of months or 6 weeks or something. A bit like doing your ankle ligaments, where it's like 6 weeks and you'll be back going. You'll do a few knee exercises and you'll be all right. And then they went, so we're going to have to refer you to your doctor. At that point, I was going, that doesn't sound too good. If I'm going to the doctors about this when the physio can't sort it out, it doesn't sound too good. And then I went home, looked at the disc, because you get it on a little CD. Looked at the disc on a laptop, and straight away it's like a blank screen of black with a few little grains of your skin in that you see, and then there was just a big tear through the middle. Yeah, so it looked like a big rip mark in a sheet of paper. I went, oh, that must be it then. So, and then found out it was knee reconstruction.
Okay, so you went in for an op?
Yep, went in for an op about a month and a half, 2 months later.
And then op successful? How long were you in for?
I stayed overnight, so I was in for, I think I went in at 11 o'clock in the morning and woke up about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was in overnight, came back out the next day, and to be fair, I was pretty good at it. If there's ever a time to do it, it's probably that time. You're still young enough that you heal pretty quickly. Yeah. I was pretty fit at the time.
So what did your rehab thing? You obviously gone in, come out, and then I assume can't do anything for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, so it's like you're walking, just about putting weight on it for a couple of weeks, and then it's a long rehab. I did mine pretty well. I was 6 months, which is pretty good. I think it was 6 months and 1 day from when I had the op to when I first went into a training session, which pretty quick. I think it was kind of rushed through a little bit, but after a month or 2 months or so, you're starting to weight bear more and do some knee dips and stuff like that. I was quite fortunate at the time. The academy manager and my coach pushed for me to be supported a little bit, and I had the first team physio working with me, first team strength and conditioning coach working with me, which DeCanio wasn't too happy about and didn't like me. And what's this 14, 15-year-old doing in the first team village, and why is she doing that with him? But they were really good and supported me with that. So it was a long, hard process of do like a month of running figures of 8, slightly tight, every week, and it's like, it's mind numbing, frustrating, but it's what it is.
Did you see DeCanio a lot?
So it was strange. So it was at a time where he came in, and I don't know if you know a lot about what happened there, but he did pretty well with the team, but basically brought in all Italians and turned the club upside down, really. At one point when he came in, he said, academy, no, I don't want one of those, get rid of it. And then all academy players, staff were banned from being at the training ground at the same time as the first team, which made things quite challenging. I think in the end he had bigger things to worry about, because they started off not doing so well and then were doing well and then not so well again. So I think he kind of relaxed a little bit on that. Was around him a little bit. He spoke, most of his sessions were in Italian. When I was there anyway, from what I saw, he was a big name and a big presence in Swindon. Don't think he really wanted to be there, but it was a stepping stone for him.
Was his next club Sunderland? Did he go from Sunderland to Sunderland?
Yeah, he's definitely a character. I think the difficulty he would have is going from being such a great player to coaching lads who are League One Championship players at the time, who have nowhere near the amount of ability he had, and it's how do you coach them to win football matches? Luckily, they chucked a bit of money into it, so he had a few better players, but I think he was very frustrated at that point.
Hoddle, I think, had the same thing at Tottenham.
Yeah, and Hoddle was at Swindon Town as well, wasn't he?
Yeah,
so similar story.
Well, man, regularly you used to go on about how good a player was, his passing range. You hear about it from all the other pros that are on TVs and stuff. So
I think it's a strange concept to assume because you were a good player, you will be a good coach. I think there's some great lessons and values you learn as being from being a player that relate to coaching, but it's not a hard and fast rule, and I think what you get is coaches who are coaches and are learners of the game probably understand people and understand the process more, whereas ex-players understand what it takes, they understand the environment, and as long as they're understanding and they work during their career, they understand the game and tactics pretty well. But there's two polar opposites, and I don't think you can just assume because you've played the game you can coach the game. And I think that's probably where some guys like that find the difficulty.
I think like someone who got a lot of acclaim for what they did was Frank Lampard when he's gone to Derby, took Jody Morris with him.
Yeah.
And Jody Morris has done obviously a long stint in the youth and academy ranks at Chelsea and stuff. I would say a real astute hire on the principle that Frank Lampard probably has a great name in terms of being able to attract players and stuff, which he's done on people on loan. I'd also say, like you said, he's like in terms of ability how to win and ideas, he's probably worked around some of the best coaches in the world, so probably has some really good and astute tactical ideas in terms of like, I want my 10 to pick up this pocket, or I want my 4 and 8 to do this rotation to get on the football and stuff. In terms of experiences behind going in and coaching on a day-to-day basis, he doesn't have that.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the experience of that. Like that, you'll have coaches, some like coaches that will retire from playing at 20. Lampard retired around 40. They'd have 20 years experience in that. Even if he was coaching part-time for 5 years, that's an extra 15 years experience where they go, actually, I need to tweak the session like this or like that. Where Jody Morris will have those experiences, although he played, he would have spent a bit longer working his way through that. So I think the two of them together is probably a real...
Yeah, I think that's probably your perfect balance. If you can have someone with extensive playing experience at the top level, and then someone with coaching experience at the top level, that's a happy medium.
Yeah. So in terms of what you said, you've done your cruise ship, you obviously left, and you said you went to college. Now, obviously from me knowing you, I know that you went to Filton College, which is over in Bristol, now called SGS. And then kind of moved on after that. What was that like in terms of, like you said, you've not moved away from home, but spending more time going in every day, obviously be education every day, football every day, and all that type of stuff. How did you find that transition?
I loved it. I think that transition from going from in school where you need to be here at this time, you need to be here at this time, and there'll be a teacher there ringing a bell, pushing you along, making sure you're doing what you're doing. So suddenly you've gone, here's a bit more responsibility. You've got to sort yourself out. You've got to get to college on time. You've got to plan getting the bus at the right time so you can get to training on time. You've got to plan how you're going to eat that day. You're going to plan how you're going to get to your lesson, all that sort of stuff. I enjoyed it. You play football for 2 hours in the morning, go to lesson in the afternoon. At the time I was working as well, so I wanted to earn a bit of money, so I was quite fortunate at Filton. There's also goals, 5-side courts there, so I used to referee on the night there, so I just spend hours and hours around that college. But it was what I needed at that point. It was a reasonably good level, playing pretty much full-time football, which helped me get back fit and enjoying it. Was at a level that college football was pretty comfortable with, and being a younger one was still playing good standard, and then playing men's football as well. You kind of got that other experience of, right, we need to win, we're going to win this, and we're having that competitive edge as well.
So in terms of coaching staff, when you went into Filton, who was he coaching at the time?
So I had a mixture. I had Simon Paynes, Bill Meehan and Alex Ball. Different coaches. Alex Ball was good for me. He actually played at times with me. So having someone like him who was more, let's say, a younger academy coach in terms of mentality at that point. He helped me enjoy football and enjoy having the football with me. I think there was a little bit of disparity between someone who wanted the centre half to get on the ball and get the ball at a pitch, or someone who wanted the centre half to get the ball and look to draw players to the ball and then move it forward if you can.
Do you think having a coach like Alex helped your enjoyment of football in terms of from you were saying before in the schoolboy stuff, getting to a stage where it's quite not hard work, but maybe the enjoyment level's not there and stuff. Do you think that was part of the reason why?
Yeah, 100%. I think it was a weird one. I didn't spend too much time being directly coached by Alex, but because he was in and around it, there was a little bit more relief and acceptance. Probably someone fighting your corner a little bit of, as a centre back, as a right back, they should get on the football. They should want the ball, which kind of kept that style of play that was probably associated with the college at that time and was associated with how they want to play. I think without him in that group, it could have been shifted to, okay, we'll play Route 1 stuff and really try and work them that way and see what we can nick. Where it wasn't really our style. We played, at the time, it was Bristol Academy Women's, who are now Bristol City Women's. We were playing on their stadium pitch, so on a Saturday when they weren't playing, we'd play on the pitch, which was like a carpet, and then you go and play local Southmead away, which is like an absolute cowfield. And the difference in the two is, at home we want to play, and we must have had 80% possession most of the time, but we'd win 2-1 because they'd nick one from a corner and we'd be panicking for the last 20 minutes of the game because most of them were 16. We had a couple older heads like Alex Ball playing, a couple of third years, but other than that, we were an under-18s team playing men's football. But we did pretty well. We had some tough games, but we did pretty well. I think we came second in the end, but didn't quite go up. So yeah, it was an enjoyable experience for me.
Okay, so how long were you at Filton for?
Pretty much a season. So I did a season there, and then I had the opportunity to come into the Southampton setup for a year, training out of Bath. What
drew you to that?
Professionalism, I think. I didn't know if I wanted to go at that point. I was, again, got the education side of things. It needs to be done because I realised my injury, if I had something like that again, which could happen, I jumped for a ball and tore my cruciate. I jumped for a ball 30, 40 times a game. So it could happen straight away. I need to get... Yeah, I can't believe, Jesus. Come on, Eddie. But it was one of those that I wanted the education sorted, and in the end, Matty Hell, who was academy manager here at the time, sorted it out for me and came in, and it was a professional setup. It was academy football, playing slightly higher level and playing academy teams regularly and training regularly here. And yeah, it was a more professional setup, and thought, why not? Let's give it one last hurrah. I felt once before, it's worth a go again.
So obviously come in first, I'm going to say first day, because first day don't really know what's going on, you're just doing it. First couple of weeks, you come into the setup. What do you notice?
I think straight away whereas when I was at Filton, there was 3 squads. There was the first team made up of a lot of third years of college, so 19-year-olds who are in their last year of college, who are wanting to win something, who are doing that side of things. And then there was a few first years and second years in that group, but it was largely made up of the older boys. And then there was a second team who were good footballers, but first years, so weren't quite at that level to step up next. Probably a few of them filled in now and then. And then there was a third team who were money makers, really, I think. So they got the college a bit of money for turning up and signing on. So there was a huge number of players. We must have had 70 boys on the football programme. So constantly you're with 70 lads in training all the time. Whereas when I came to the Southampton setup, it was 15, 16 lads, all of that same level, sort of looking towards stepping up, of similar age. The professionalism that came with it, with the coaches that we had, and obviously Matt.
Who did you have at the time?
So Matt started off with us, and then we had Danny May and Lee Smith. Straight away, there was huge expectation in behaviour and standards and work rate for one. I think every time we go, Danny's taking a session. All right, I'll take my runners out with me, plenty of water, because you lose forfeits, things like that. I think it up the standards a little bit. Whereas if they did it at Filton, I think the majority of lads wouldn't have bought into that.
So you got that professionalism there. In terms of level of players, do you think there's a great disparity?
There's very minor differences. I think there's always something. It's either something like a physical deficiency at that level. There's a commitment issue. There's behaviour issue. There's injury problems. Something like that. That there's a reason why those boys are playing for Filton, not in the academy setup, or maybe a bit of bad luck, or their style of play doesn't suit League Two football. So you end up with good players playing in it. But the difference between being in a club and having the support network around it probably makes the gap a little bit bigger. But what I will say is, as long as those boys in the clubs are playing games, the gap will get bigger. Whereas if they're not playing, suddenly the gap gets a lot smaller. Because I think it's a big time that you learn how to play proper football, not learn how to keep the ball, how to do those sort of things. You learn how to go and win games and how to deal with a lad who's 10 years older than you that you've never played against before, trying to intimidate you, trying to smash into you every tackle you get and really test you physically as well as mentally.
Did you ever play with Whitey, Ben White?
Yeah.
For me, he's a real he's a really good sign of that there are very good players out in that college system.
Yeah.
That surprised me that they're not in academy setups. Because for me, Whitey has probably pretty much everything you need as a centre half. He's got a little bit of an edge to him.
Played a lot of right back as well, didn't he?
Yeah. So he's decent on the ball,
yeah.
Athletically quite good. I'd probably say could have done with maybe packing on a few gym sessions. Yeah. But he also had a bit of an edge to him, which for like non-league centre halves or whatever you needed. He's always one that I woid have thought, if I was I was an under-18s manager, academy, and we'd gone, right, we're going to play Filton in a friendly, it'll be a good game for us. If I'd seen him, I'd have been like, hold on, why is he, where's he come from? Can we not get him in trial? Can we not do this? It surprised me that doesn't happen more.
I think it's, especially with lower league clubs, it's a big risk. Not a lot of clubs are willing to do that, I don't think.
So you work in a college at the moment, alongside the Saints stuff.
Yeah.
Would you say from the teams that you've played against, because I imagine you have played a couple of academy teams.
Yeah.
Obviously with recently, because you're not that old, you're not that out of the thing. Would you say you've got lads in your setup that you think would actually be capable of going into the academy and doing quite well?
Yeah, I think it's a funny one. What we've got is a group of boys who are, I say it a lot, if you could make a couple of five-a-side teams out of them, they'd smash everyone. They'd be brilliant. They'd be winning goals cup in the north, the south, everywhere. But they struggle in 11-side football for a couple of reasons, really. Some of them have never been coached, so don't understand the game. They understand what happens when I get the ball when I'm in front of you, and they understand, right, the goal was there I need to get the ball there, I might use him to get me on the ball in a different area. But they don't understand the concept of the tactical side of the game about drawing people to the ball, moving the ball into an area to get it somewhere else. They don't see the purpose in that. They see, if I put the ball there, well, I expect to be attacking from there. And on the flip side, they don't understand that discipline in their shape and their roles and responsibilities in how to defend. There's some brilliant footballers there, technically brilliant footballers. From what I've seen of it, there's a couple that, given the opportunity, could go in and really excel. But they need a lot of work, and if someone's willing to give them that chance, and if they're willing to do it, and take all the ego side of things out of it. I'm in this fancy tracksuit for whatever club it may be, and I'm going to put pictures on Instagram and do all that side of things. But are they going to be learning? Are they going to be going and doing the extra little bit to catch up? Which is where their challenge lies, because they don't understand the game like a lot of the current academy boys will.
I think that's probably something that's not just like this region, it's nationwide.
Yeah.
I imagine there are a lot of very good players. The classic example at the moment is Vardy plays non-league football, comes all the way through. There's loads of people that have done that all the way through. I think it's probably easier for strikers because when you score goals, people take notice. I think that there is a place for those players, like college players, to go into academy programs. But like I said, I think the problem is the game understanding bit is where it becomes difficult to know what standard they're at and how much can they learn / are willing to learn / are willing to put in the extra hours to learn in order to catch that up.
I think the challenge that they've got is they need to be playing a good level non-league football. So they need to have that competitive side of things of learning men's football and still having that element of college football where they get to play properly, in terms of they get to play like trying to keep the ball and not playing on cow fields and that sort of thing. So if they're playing that level, they probably don't get any tactical understanding or extra bits of information that may help them that way. But then if they're just playing college football, they don't get the general understanding and playing within their own age group, really, where they can experiment and enjoy the football, really.
Okay, so I've got opinions on this age group that would be interesting to hear your thoughts on. I know it's a path that both of us have taken at different times. University football, and then came to University of Bath and played there, part of the performance programme. Now, obviously, for some people that don't know, it's quite a lot of different programmes up and down the country. You've got Hartpury's a good one, University of South Wales is good, Swansea, Durham, Loughborough, obviously Bath, Stirling, all that have full-time daily training programmes in and around the university degrees of some sort. What are your feelings on the current state of university football, and what's its purpose, essentially, do you think?
I think the purpose should be giving players an opportunity who have maybe failed at football in terms of failed to progress into professional clubs, an opportunity to educate themselves to a higher level, which will give them the opportunity to work outside of playing. I think having that network where they are educated enough that they can use their experience of being involved in that elite environment, but then go and earn something out of it. And then you're looking at, is there an opportunity for them to do what they enjoy in the similar environment and progress, possibly, to going back into the game, as whether that's through non-league football, whether that's through getting a trial and going straight back into the elite setup.
So obviously you've got kind of two transitions there. One is, I guess, academic based in terms of making sure you've got qualifications. Obviously, a degree is always helpful.
Yeah, I think the degree, as much as it's not helpful in some sports jobs, you don't need a degree to do the job. I think the experience of having to put your knowledge down on paper in a readable and purposeful way is just a skill in general. You're not just writing an essay, you're being able to understand your own opinion, draw from other people's, and give a justified argument.
So it's interesting, you're obviously talking about the skills and being able to collate opinions and knowledge and stuff and put that together. Which, again, is kind of secondary to the qualification. Are there any other challenges or skills that you picked up at uni that you don't think you would got just by going in maybe as working in a sports centre or something like that?
I think in terms of the career I've chosen, in terms of coaching football, I think what the degree has given me is a knowledge outside of football in general, because you go in and you say, okay, I'll take my level 1, level 2, B license, A license, whatever. You learn what football people think about football. Whereas at university, you get to see loads of different experiences. In my class, there was rugby players, netballers, horse riders, swimmers, hockey players, ski jumper. So loads of different sports where they all have a different experience, which is the same, but very different as well. And then whatever you learn and whatever your topic is, isn't always specific to football, but what you would write about is probably specific to football. So it's just trying to relate all those different environments to what you're currently in.
Have you got any like examples of that, or anything that you've picked up from a different sport and you've gone, actually, why do we do that in football? Why is that the way, if you like?
I think you get a lot of what I've seen, the difference between some of the individual sports and football in general is so much different, because the individuals, they go and they'll go in a swimming pool for 3 hours on their own. There won't be a coach in sight, and then they'll have one session a week where the coach is over there going, stop, start, okay, yeah, that's your time. You're not quite there yet. See you later. And whereas football is all about opinions, you could have one coach who comes and watching play and goes, he's the best player I've ever seen. The other one goes, I ain't having him. I wouldn't start him over a one-legged player. And that difference between opinion and facts of that's your time, that's what you get, is I find bizarre. And I don't know how, in terms of mentality, footballers would deal with that.
Someone just coming in being really blunt and going, you're not up to it, see you later.
Number 9, you've scored 10 goals this season. Now we require 15 goals this season, see you later.
It's interesting. I listened to an audiobook. It's called The Cubs Way. It's quite a long one. It's about Chicago Cubs baseball team and how they broke it's like a 100-year curse of them not winning like national American thing. In that, there's a paragraph where a player comes in, who's a former player comes in as a coach and starts reading reviews of himself, so like scouting reports on himself, and his immediate thing was, why did no one ever tell me to work on that stuff? Because if you told me, I would have gone and worked on it and got better. So it's really interesting. You bring up the fact that, like, as a striker, so I'm trying to think of someone like Heskey. So everyone's thing with Heskey was, don't score enough goals.
Yeah.
So that got portrayed by the media because he was an England player and stuff. But how many people up and down the country is there that they go, actually, he doesn't put the ball in the back of the net and go, you're not playing for me because you don't put the ball in the back of the net enough, what would a response to a player like you're saying? What would the response to that be?
I just find it fascinating how it's so black and white. Whereas we sit down, and if we're talking about a player, we sit in here and we have an audit process. There's 8 different people. There's sports science department. There's everything else, psychology, and you go, this is what I think of this player. And then everyone at some point comes to some agreement of the majority what they think. Whereas you sit down, your Team GB swimming. Okay, who do we pick? Right, who swam the best times this season? Okay, him. All right, we're done. Obviously, there's more to it than that, but on the face of it, it's who's best.
But I think, I don't want to insult anyone. I think there is a point in which you do turn around and say, like, if you haven't got the qualifying standards, you're not involved.
Yeah.
Not, you might have great potential in 4 years' time. Well, we'll see in 4 years' time. He's not going to be running for us.
Yeah.
I do think the football as an industry does need to look outside in terms of stuff we can pick up. More stuff than the national team, granted more play and all that type of stuff. But I think there's a lot of. What I will say, I think we are beginning to wake up a little bit. I think if you look at qualifications like ECAS, where they try and get different sports to come in and speak to them, I think that's been a real benefit for the people I've heard that have been on that. I think if you look at some CPD events now, both internally and externally, they have guest speakers from different sports come away and go, actually, there's something to that. There's something I can take away from that.
It's a real strange industry. There's brilliant people working in really good jobs. There's some brilliant people working in probably nowhere near the credit they deserve, either it's grassroots football or professional football. But also on the flip side, there's some really bad people in good level jobs or doing important jobs which probably don't perform to the way they should.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it's interesting that I guess a lot of it comes down to trust, particularly at the top end. And I do understand to a point why people bring in their own. In terms of obviously where you're at now, you come through Bath Uni, obviously learned those skills. Ones that I probably learned, like your timekeeping, like cooking, which I think is a great life experience.
I'm not a great cook, to be honest. My missus will tell you that.
But no, I think like being away from home, I think that's a really important one. Like, I wonder how often we help our players in terms of those skills. And
I think it's just responsibility, a responsibility for yourself, and even simple things like, okay, you got to make sure you've packed your notepad for your lecture. You've got to make sure you packed a towel, your football kit, change of clothes, shin pads, boots, whatever you need. You've got to prep, probably understand what point can I get food so I'm preparing right for the game, for the training. How can I recover? How can I get enough sleep? When can I fit that in? Am I going to have time to go and enjoy the sunshine, go and have a laugh with my mates? Am I going to have time to crack on with my work? And it's self-management, not necessarily general organisation and timings and stuff. It's just being responsible for yourself.
And I think like when you hear a lot of older players talk about it, they say about how they've had to, when they've realised that as they got later, that actually the importance of managing themselves and maybe doing the extra bits, and like Ryan Giggs was famous for his yoga, all that type of stuff. I wonder sometimes with the younger ones, because we do aid and enable them so much, do a lot for them, which is great in terms of them allowing them to focus. Are we taking away that edge of actually you've got to have some accountability for having your passport? You've got to have some accountability for, making sure that your kit bag is ready for a thing. If you're going to lessons, you've got to make sure that you've got all those things. Granted, at 18 you don't know all the answers, but you're at an age where you can be held accountable for the stuff that you do. I was speaking to Ian Brunchweiler, or Brunchy as we know him, which I'm hoping at some point I'll get a chance to talk to him on here. And he was telling me a story about him being over in the West Indies with like the development team. And they said, if you don't bring your water bottles down tomorrow, because it's going to be roasting, you can't play. You're not going to be in a starting 11. And so what happens? Someone turns up who they were expecting to start the following day, forgot his water bottle, couldn't play.
Yeah.
Which, like,
it's funny that we talked about the milk cup earlier. I remember it seems bizarre now. Like looking back, I can't believe we did it. But I don't know what was going through our heads. We were leading up to the quarter final where we did really well. We decided that we'd get everyone together because we were staying in like university halls. So there was like a living room and a kitchen across about 4 floors. Coaches and physios were staying down in the bottom floors, and we were up top in the other corner of the little section where we were. And we decided, you know what, we'll get everyone together, whole 16-man squad who was there. We'll have a Royal Rumble. we'll get all the sofas here. We'll make a little ring and we'll have a Royal Rumble.
For those who don't know, there's a basic massive fight.
Massive fight. And we're like, okay, but when can we do it? Oh, we can't do it too early. Coaches will still be up and they'll be around and they'll probably hear us. Tell you what, we'll do it at 12 o'clock at night when they've all gone to bed. So we've gone, everyone in, let's all have a massive scrap. And one of them has nearly lost his jewel because someone's roundhouse kicked him in the face. And you're thinking, at that point, as a 14, 15-year-old, you probably know better, but you can't understand or manage yourself because that temptation is too much. Because a Royal Rumble, it was great fun, but you can't get yourself out of that mentality where you're like, oh, that'd be great. And there's no going, right, I need to prepare for the next day. Probably going to bed at 1 o'clock after an hour of a Royal Rumble. Maybe not the best idea. We did all right.
But that's the thing about that is, it's like, you appreciate now a little bit older, probably not the best preparation. At the time, you probably realised that, but your actions didn't reflect that. Yeah. So, like, the importance of, like, assisting older players in that journey, I think, is really important. Because they're not going to make all the right decisions. Like, I look back to when I was 18, moron. Absolute idiot.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad that the like Brexit vote and stuff wasn't when I was 18, because I probably would not have bothered voting and would have regretted it because I was an idiot. I was an idiot at 18 years of age. But you learn, and with the assistance of the people around you, I was quite fortunate. I had really good family grounding and stuff, and obviously came here, so I had some really good friends, and that really enabled me to kind of make better decisions more often.
Yeah.
And that's what you want from the younger pros and younger things, is to be held more accountable and make better decisions more often. Yeah. And that's not just off the pitch, on the pitch, that's off the pitch. So if we can find ways of holding them more accountable off of it, my guess is that they'll be more willing to be accountable on it as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I mean, I love the fact you had a Royal Rumble thing. Probably not the best thing the coaches would want to know, but yeah, I think that's something that's really important for those guys at that age group, to try and get a thing where we support them, but they are held accountable for a little bit more than they are at the moment. I think that's something at uni you do learn. There's obviously massive negatives towards it and stuff. Your front, you've come through University of Bath, played there, trained there and stuff. Obviously started off development centres at Southampton.
Yeah.
Worked your way through into kind of the academy here. Obviously doing your bit at St Brendan's in terms of your college stuff. Your future, what does that look like? Or what would you like that to look like?
I think in terms of my career, my future hopefully lies in football. I think it's what I know and it's what I enjoy. So to what degree that is, I don't know. I think my route, probably coaching. I think, but nowadays you don't make a career or you don't have a job as just a coach. It's all the other stuff that goes along with it, the admin side of things and organisation, leadership side of things. But coaching would be my main drive. I think probably for me, I've been fortunate enough to do a mixture of age groups. I probably see myself, my next challenge in terms of what I'd want to do next and what I feel would help me develop, but also where I'd be good is probably slightly older age groups. Whether that's years time, whether that's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, I don't know. But I think around probably 11 to 16 would be where I would feel I'd have a good impact and what I'd want to do, really.
Yeah.
I think it's difficult. The college program stuff is brilliant. Working under 18 staff is really good. At this point, I don't think I'm probably ready for an under 18s academy job. I don't feel I've got as far enough into my journey to warrant that. I don't think so. Having that age group between probably 11s and 16s is where I would like to go.
Yeah, I think it's finding that balance in it between where you want to be, and everyone says that having aim 5 or 2, 5, 10 years time, whatever.
Yeah.
What's a challenge to you now? Because stuff can get tedious if you do the same thing over and over again. And like enjoying yourself. I think one thing the football industry probably needs to get better at is having that work-life balance.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's we said it before, but in general, if you want to go into football, you're not going in there to make loads of money and have a pretty easy career. It's going to be tough slog, and it's going to take a lot of hard work and commitment to get to anywhere near a comfortable role, or probably a role that you feel is satisfying and you enjoy regularly. I think I started off doing stuff. I'd done under 5s grassroots football, and I still do a little bit of it now. I run my own little thing doing under 5s, and it is good, and it's crazy at times, and you think the variety that I've got going from under 5s to under 18s to under 8s to under 12s, 13s, 14s. It's crazy how much you can fit into 1 week, but there's good bits from all of it. It's just finding out where you can get that enjoyment from.
I think what's good about that, I think obviously we've both done similar in terms of doing school visits and doing coaching and all that, is we talk about 10,000 hours with the kids. That's kind of our acclimatization of 10,000 hours, or accumulation of 10,000 hours, sorry. That's how we're getting our 10,000 hours in. So it's not necessarily always going to be right at the very top level. Yeah. I'll get 10,000 hours there. It's actually like learning how to manage a group, learning how to adapt a session plan when you've planned for 12 and 11 turn up and you're like, oh, bloody hell. Like, all I need is one more. Is Jimmy not coming? He's like, no, he's ill tonight. Oh, I've got to leave early as well. Oh, cheers then. But it's like all those skills.
What I find is it's good. You almost check in with yourself. And I do stuff with the under 5s and I go, sure, they buzzed off that. Why don't I just do that with my under 14s? Yeah. Like, still kids, it's still football. Like, let's see what happens. And inevitably, 99% of the boys want to go there and enjoy playing football. And if you can get an environment where they work hard and learn a few bits alongside that, then happy days. There's not a great difference between an under 5 and a under 18. As soon as you leave the balls out, they'll soon be smashing them around. And honestly, I told my under 18s off for not looking at me, sitting down, lying down when I'm talking, like just little stuff like that. And you go, oh yeah, I'm with the under 5s, and they're doing that as well. Yeah. There's same thing as football.
They all love numbers game.
Yeah.
So you get don't do it very often, but they all love the numbers game.
They all love competitiveness.
Yeah.
As soon as you put a score on it, they love it. So
yeah, that's good. Okay, and again, we'll round this up now. In terms of best player or person that you've played with or against, and the reason why.
I'm not going to say Michael Wright, I'm afraid.
Well, yeah. I wasn't searching for that one, so we're fine. I don't think anyone will be saying that.
Best player. So if I capture a moment in time, it's when I was playing for Avon Athletic that we spoke about. The lad who I was playing with at the time, Callum Evans, there was him and Reece Pennell, who were two lads who were polar opposites, both very good footballers. Reece was an absolute maverick, technically, unbelievable. Like, would pull the ball out the sky, flick it over someone's head, and then smash it in top corner. And at 10, 11 years old, watching him do that, he was unbelievable. Callum Evans was rapid, real workhorse, technically really good. One went to Man United, one went to Bristol Rovers, one drinks in a pub on a Saturday afternoon, one had a few injuries and is playing for Rotherham or someone like that now. But at that moment in time, I haven't seen many footballers that were as good as him. That's both of them, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd probably go with those two as 10-year-olds, but there's probably better footballers than them now. But yeah, there was a big gap between those.
Those are the two that you remember. That's what.
Yeah, I think I just remember going, Jesus, they're good, aren't they? Like, they're good. But yeah, when I was at Swindon, I played against Loftus-Cheek and some of those boys, and yeah, I chased shadows for an hour and a half, but those are the two that probably stick out. But yeah,
Brits, thank you very much for your time, mate.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
See you soon. Thanks for listening to the Sports Initiative podcast with me, Michael Wright. Please remember to follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram at the Sports Initiative Podcast, and share this podcast with friends and family. I'll see you next week.